Alright, today I'm going to show you guys how to put the heavy duty rollers that we got in a secondary. Alright, this style secondary right here you will find it in any kind of razor that's 15 backwards. So a 14, 15, 1000, 11 through 14 XP 900, any engine braking model razor or Ranger for that matter, from 15 back, and actually on the Rangers it'd probably be 16 back, but don't get confused. Point is if your secondary looks like this with a removable helix on the back, these rollers will work. Okay. Also, we're only installing the rollers on the outside, not the inside. Why? Because what happens, and more so on the XP 1000 than any other vehicle, is that these rollers here get flat spotted, and then when they do, a lot of times they'll damage the aluminum on one side. All right, so we ship you 4 rollers, but we only want you to install them on the outside. All right, so one, because the inside rollers just rarely fail. The OE rollers just rarely fail. There's no need to replace them, and the very few failures we've had with our rollers have always been on the inside, hardly ever on the outside. Thousands and thousands of them out there. So there's just no need to put them on the inside. Alright, so this is actually a brand new secondary. It doesn't even have a spring in it. We're going to go through the motions to show you how to swap out the rollers on it. But as I mentioned, we're going to send you 4. Why? Because you probably already have some wear on that aluminum, depending on how many miles you have. So when you put a new roller in there, of course you need to smooth that up, but that wear is going to cause even our roller to have a problem, and so you've got 2 more to use for later purpose in this clutch, or a brand new one later. And that way, if you put them in brand new, then this flat spotted rollers just be a thing of the past. It's just no longer an issue. Alright, so to the install. This is a brand new secondary I pulled off the shelf. Doesn't even have a spring in it. We're just going to go through the motions on this, and this will speed things up for me. Alright, so one thing you need to know is that these screws are put in and they got Loctite on them, so you need to heat them up. So you take a torch and you heat your screws up one at a time, and I normally hear a little pop when I heat it up. I guess that's just the aluminum. And then you take I use an impact. I think this is probably the best thing to use to keep from stripping these screws out, because I can put a lot of downward force on it. So it's a T25 process. Heat it up. Hopefully you hear that little crack. Put it in there, make sure it's in there seated. Put a lot of pressure on it, and then unscrew it. Alright, this one's only got 2 screws in it. Like I said, just for speeding up video purposes. Alright, slide your helix out, set it to the side. At this point, put it on your secondary spring compressor. Alright, like I said, this one doesn't have a spring in it, so we're going to simulate it. Put this part of our compressor on. Take our T-handle and run it down. FYI, love our little compressor because this is Acme screw, not a threaded rod. Goes on fast. Alright, I've got a pair of crook nose snap ring pliers. I bought these off Amazon. The brand is Nipex, spelled with a K. A 40 to 100 millimeter pair. Great tool. Put it in the snap ring, spread it apart. Alright, of course, as you pull this off with this one, if it had a spring in it, would be pushing up. Take your tool back off. I always take my snap ring off and set it to the side so I can put it on back in the same direction. The snap ring actually has a side to it. Okay, at this point, like I said, the spring would push it up. So just for marking's sake, what I do is set my spring to the side, I put this back down. There's a little keyway, if you will, or I call it a missing tooth, and I'll take a marker and I mark right down the shaft, and then I mark right on to the dampener area so that I'll know I can line it up later. Alright, so take this back off. If you was gonna swap out a dampener to the heavy duty one, this would be the time to do it. Basically, you just plop it out. One thing you need to take notice is there should be a mark, and it corresponds with that missing tooth or key that I talk about. Take your new one, put it in the same spot, line it up. You can set this over to the side. That's done. That's done. Okay. Now I'm gonna set this off the tube. If any of you guys watched our old video, I used makeshift tools, but I actually have the correct tool, which is a 1/8 inch roll pin punch. A roll pin punch has a little, I don't know what you want to call it, a little knot on the end there, fit in that roll pin. So the way I do them here at the shop is I get it started. Now we send you 2 more roll pins, but I done got to where I just don't knock them out all the way. So I get it up on the edge where I can see my pin, and I start tapping, and when I think it's almost out, I stop. You can take a pair of pliers. That's, yep, now mine will turn. Just FYI, if this is a used clutch with time on it, water's got in it or whatever, the shaft's gonna be real hard to turn, not like this brand new one. When I used to do the used ones, do them in the shop here, I'd put a pair of vice grips on it. So every now and then you're gonna have trouble getting that little shaft out. All right. So anyway, twist and pull. All right. We're gonna go ahead. At this point, normally, when I'm doing it in the shop, I go ahead and take my roller. You got a chamfered side and a flat side. And the chamfer always goes towards the center of the clutch. Okay. Now, typically I put it right back in and do the other side and then knock these back in, but I'm going to show you one extra step just for people who want to take theirs apart. Alright, what just rolled away was a spring cup. Now you're only going to see this in an XP1000. Alright, so anyway, I'm going to go to the other side. We're going to knock it almost out as well. I think that's it. Let's see. I got lucky on this video. Normally I'm back and forth. Okay. Now then, for those who want to take their secondary apart and give it a good cleaning, which is a good time with Scotch-Brite pad and brake clean, some brake clean, Scotch-Brite, scuff it up. The reason I went ahead and took it apart is to let you know that on the inside of the bell right here, there is an X. It corresponds with an X on the outside, if I can find it. Alright, I'm sorry. Here it is right here on the casting. Alright, so this X and this X belong to each other. Alright, so I'm going to put it back down. Find my X again. Alright, so there we go. Like I said, here, I'm usually doing new ones. I never take it apart. I just drive them out and push them back in. Alright, so you'll see that our rollers have a coating on them. It's white, it's a powder, it's a nanoparticle coating. Don't wipe it off. Slide the shaft back in. And try to get you this, the end of this shaft has a flat point on it. I use a flat point to this side so that I can line it up. Just get it square with a clutch. Alright, go around the other side. Get your other new roller. Again, chamfer to the inside, slide the shaft in, tap it in. Alright, the purpose of the lubricant is it's a nanoparticle, and it'll work its way into the plastic that we use, which is also a lubricated plastic, and into the aluminum, make it a very slick surface. Alright, at this point I usually take my punch, go back in the same hole, tap it in, and that aligns the pin up with the hole in the clutch. Alright, they're aligned. Flip flip it over, drop it down. I've got a big punch. You can probably take most anything. I set it right on the edge of the pin, tap it back in. Now, if you was going to use the pins that we include, what I have done here in the shop, and it's sitting over here on another table, but I take a little bitty bit of grease and stick on this tool and stick this pin to it where it'll stick, because we're going down in a hole, and you set it right on the hole. You got to do this carefully, and then tap, 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 just to get it started, and then you can go on and hammer your new pin in. All right, so anyway, we got our new shafts in. If you were doing a heavy duty dampener, it's in. Leave the OE rollers. Get back on your tool. If your clutch has a spring cup, put it in. Put your new spring in. And then find that missing tooth. Well, there's my mark. Should have just paid attention to my mark. Got my mark on here. And you set it down. Now you're going to be setting it about right here with a spring on here. I guess if I had a spring handy I could do that. But anyway, you got your spring. And then put your tool back on it. Whoop. Snap ring, putting it back on the same way it came off. Put your tool on it. Alright, now then, so the purpose of the mark is as this is going down, you can line up your mark on your dampener and your mark on the shaft as you go down. And then when sometimes it doesn't go straight on, and you gotta loosen it back up a little, turn one notch and back one notch, and then finally, you know, it's kind of like move, 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 and then finally you're getting it all lined up, and there we are. So let's just pretend we did that. All right, so our spring's compressed. We're down on there. Take our snap ring and put it back. Make a tool off. Alright, you take your helix. Now there's an X on the back of the clutch, and there's an X on your helix. Here's mine. And those two have to be lined up. Alright, so there they are. Now what I would suggest is some blue Loctite on your screws. Again, this is a brand new, and I'm not going to Loctite this one. Put some blue Loctite on it. Put your screws back. Like I said, we're not going to go through the full motions here. Hopefully you can grasp what we're doing here. And then what I typically do is start and then go to the opposite side. Put my others in here and then opposite, and usually for some reason this screw still got a little loose, so I go back and hit it a little bit. Now people ask me the torque on it. I don't know, I think it's 7 pounds.